Blake Lively is spiraling. After the judge rejected her latest courtroom maneuver, her entire legal strategy is collapsing, and the meltdown is visible to the public. She is now clinging to California's newly enacted Me Too law, the Code of Civil Procedure 47.1, as her last line of defense. On paper, the law was designed to protect vulnerable survivors of harassment. But in this case, Blake is weaponizing it as a shield, trying to dodge responsibility in a defamation case she started herself. Here's the brutal reality. This law gives her what looks like golden armor. It allows someone to throw accusations into the public arena without facing equal accountability if those claims prove false. That's why her legal team is desperately leaning on it, hoping the court will dismiss Justin Baldoni's countersuit. For Baldoni, that raises the stakes astronomically. He doesn't just have to prove Blake lied, he has to prove she lied maliciously, with intent to destroy his reputation. That's an almost impossible standard, a courtroom trap dressed up as legal reform. If he fails, the fallout is devastating. He'll not only lose the case, but could also be forced to pay Blake's high-powered attorney fees, punitive damages, and possibly triple damages. In other words, if this gambit works, Blake not only escapes unscathed, but walks away with Baldoni's money, career momentum, and credibility. Meanwhile, Blake's argument reeks of gaslighting. Her lawyers claim that because she believed her story, there can be no malice. In their twisted reasoning, delusion equals innocence. But the public isn't buying it. Social media is shredding her image, calling out the grotesque optics of a wealthy Hollywood star, twisting laws meant to protect ordinary workers and vulnerable victims. Watching someone with red carpet handlers and multi-million-dollar deals play the role of a voiceless survivor has left a sour taste in the public's mouth. And then there's Ryan Reynolds. The PR-polished, fast-talking Deadpool star is showing cracks in his carefully curated persona. At the center of this scandal lies one of the most disturbing revelations yet. Ryan allegedly coerced his 7-year-old daughter into delivering a shocking, sexually explicit line during the filming of Deadpool and Wolverine. The line? A crude joke about Hugh Jackman's character and Ryan's own. When his daughter refused, as any sane child would, Ryan reportedly threatened to recast her. Imagine that, using his own daughter as leverage in a twisted game of Hollywood blackmail, under the guise of dad humor. And it gets darker. Reports suggest she was made to deliver that line dozens, even hundreds of times. Director Sean Levy even admitted to running up to 500 takes of the child repeating it, like it was some kind of inside joke. That isn't filming, that's psychological coercion disguised as comedy. The same Ryan Reynolds who tries to paint Baldoni as a predator was himself forcing his daughter into saying something no 7-year-old should ever even hear, let alone perform on camera. This shocking incident raises damning questions about Reynolds' judgment and his ability to separate his Hollywood persona from his responsibilities as a father. Fans who once adored him as the quick-witted, internet's favorite dad are now seeing something much darker. The irony is grotesque. Ryan weaponized his fame and family while branding Baldoni a villain, all while making his own child the centerpiece of an exploitative joke. And when it comes to legal filings, Ryan's tone is equally disturbing. His motion to dismiss Baldoni's case, technically a standard 12b6 filing, didn't read like a legal document. It read like a vicious roast. Instead of sticking to cold procedural arguments, it was dripping with aggression, almost gleeful in its hostility. It felt less like the work of a lawyer and more like Ryan himself sat down to pen a scathing Twitter thread dressed up as a legal motion. It wasn't just about defense. It was about humiliation, intimidation, and character assassination. This is the reality. Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively are not playing fair. They are leveraging money, fame, and the full weight of a system tilted in their favor. Meanwhile, Justin Baldoni stands at enormous risk. If he can't prove the near-impossible standard of actual malice, he loses everything. Financially, professionally, and personally. But beyond the courtroom, the optics are damning. The very people who once branded themselves champions of empowerment and family values are being exposed as hypocrites. A Hollywood power couple using their own child as a prop, exploiting laws designed to protect real victims, and waging a smear campaign to crush a colleague. The gloss of their PR image is fading fast, replaced by something uglier, meaner, and much harder to laugh off. The verdict may not be in yet, but the court of public opinion is watching closely, and Ryan and Blake are losing ground fast. Ryan Reynolds isn't the quirky underdog his PR machine wants you to believe. Behind the jokes, the memes, and the fake bromance with Hugh Jackman is a very different man, a Hollywood powerhouse throwing punches, pulling strings, and smiling while he does it. Receipts, leaked audio, and insider accounts are painting a darker picture. Off-camera, Reynolds isn't the lovable Joker. He's the smiling assassin of Hollywood, raging, vindictive, and manipulative. He's accused of threatening co-stars, mocking Justin Baldoni behind closed doors, and even labeling him a predator in private conversations with executives, not because he believed it, but because he could. That's not humor. That's malice with a smirk. And then there's Deadpool. That infamous knife character? Reynolds admitted it was based on Baldoni. So let's stop pretending this was satire. It was targeted humiliation on the biggest stage possible, weaponized as comedy. This isn't just celebrity gossip anymore, it's evidence. In court, Baldoni's legal team argues Reynolds' jokes, parodies, and behind-the-scenes attacks all show one thing: intent to destroy. And when you add the collusion with PR firms, the New York Times, and even allegedly altered documents, the picture becomes crystal clear. Reynolds didn't just fight back against a rival, he orchestrated a takedown. With his wife, his PR squad, and Hollywood power players in his corner, he turned the industry into his personal battleground. And yet, behind the curtain, the cracks are showing. Stephanie Jones, the PR fixer tied to this scandal, is losing clients. The New York Times may face accountability for crossing the line between reporting and collaborating. And Reynolds himself is facing mounting scrutiny, not as the charming Deadpool star, but as the man who allegedly manipulated narratives, smeared reputations, and even forced children into uncomfortable roles on set. The truth is simple: Ryan Reynolds didn't just play Deadpool. He became him. Ruthless, sarcastic, brutal. Except this isn't a movie, and the people caught in his crossfire don't get to respawn in the sequel. Ryan Reynolds has spent years selling the world a carefully packaged image: the witty, charming, self-aware superstar. The guy who trolls Hugh Jackman online, drops sarcastic one-liners in interviews, and plays the lovable rogue Deadpool on screen. But peel back the carefully crafted PR mask, and the story that emerges is far darker than the meme-worthy personality he built his empire on. Behind closed doors, the smiling assassin of Hollywood emerges, a man accused of manipulation, retaliation, and weaponizing influence in ways even his most loyal fans never imagined. It starts with his own daughter. Rather than respecting her discomfort, rather than using a voice actor or an AI stand-in for a crude line she refused to say, Reynolds reportedly pressured her by dangling the threat of replacement. A 7-year-old child told her father she didn't want to deliver a sexualized joke on camera. His response? He started auditioning other children. Only then, under that unspoken threat of being swapped out, did she agree. That's not parenting. That's psychological cornering. And it's a glimpse into how Reynolds plays every game he's in. Power first, empathy last. And that ironically leads to the bigger truth. The real predator isn't the man fighting for his name in court. It's the man who makes sure he controls the story before the truth even sees daylight. Which brings us to Ari Emanuel, once the most powerful man in Hollywood. For decades, Ari operated like a kingmaker. He didn't just run WME, he was WME. Clients feared him. Rivals envied him. Politicians courted him. He was the shadow broker who could make or break careers with a single phone call. And for Justin Baldoni, Ari wasn't a kingmaker. He was the executioner. According to insiders, Ari Emanuel didn't fire Baldoni for misconduct, breach of contract, or financial reasons. He fired him out of loyalty. On a now infamous podcast recording that mysteriously never aired, Ari boasted that he axed Baldoni simply because he could. Because Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively were his people, and Baldoni wasn't. He even mocked Baldoni's name in the process, sneering as though destroying a career was a casual flex. That's not leadership. That's tyranny disguised as loyalty. Imagine being so untouchable in your throne that you admit retaliatory firing on a podcast, like it's a badge of honor. That single quote, captured by recording, may become one of the most damning pieces of evidence Baldoni's legal team wields. Because when a Hollywood titan brags that his choices are about friendship instead of fairness, he doesn't just destroy one man's career, he hands lawyers a gift-wrapped admission of bias and damages. But karma, it seems, had a plan. Ari Emanuel, the once untouchable mogul, has been stripped of his CEO title at Endeavor following Silver Lake's $25 billion takeover. The man who prided himself on absolute control, who reduced careers to punchlines, was forced into a symbolic exile. Yes, he still holds a chairmanship. But let's be real. That's a ceremonial seat, not the throne he once ruled. Arie went from calling the shots to watching from the sidelines. And here's the kicker. His fall doesn't just matter to him. It matters to Reynolds and Lively. Because Arie was their shield. The guy who would bulldoze obstacles, bury scandals, and make dissenters vanish. With him gone, their safety net just tore wide open. Now picture the ripple effect. Reynolds, who already faces accusations of raging behind closed doors, mocking Baldoni in private, and even labeling him a predator to executives, suddenly loses the most powerful fixer in the game. Blake Lively, who aligned her legal battle with Arie's muscle and Hollywood-friendly press, suddenly sees the scaffolding of her strategy collapse. Their entire fortress of influence now has a gaping hole. And that's why Baldoni's case grows stronger by the day. The very people who tried to silence him are watching their empire crumble piece by piece. But it isn't just about power players. It's about manipulation woven into every thread of this saga. Blake Lively's legal team, for example, tried one of the oldest tricks in the book, lying by omission. In court filings, they argued they hadn't technically lied, they just hadn't told the whole truth. Sorry, but that's not clever lawyering. That's deception dressed in legal jargon. It's the same playbook that's been used for years in Hollywood, where image always outweighs integrity. And now that those half-truths are under a microscope, the whole narrative begins to rot. Meanwhile, Reynolds has been exposed for weaponizing comedy as a shield for cruelty. That infamous knife character in Deadpool? Reynolds himself admitted it was based on Baldoni. That's not parody. That's targeted humiliation dressed up as art. It's not satire when your billion-dollar franchise drags a rival's likeness through the mud, mocking them in front of the world. That's malice with a makeup budget. The courts call it character evidence. Fans call it meta. But Baldoni's lawyers are calling it what it is. Proof that the so-called funny guy weaponizes his platform to destroy reputations under the guise of a joke. And yet, the darker irony is that while Reynolds hurls accusations of predatory behavior, his own record reeks of hypocrisy. This is the same man who pressured his daughter into performing lines she found degrading. The same man accused of screaming matches in penthouses and manipulating colleagues behind closed doors. The same man who hides behind sarcasm while orchestrating reputational assassinations. If calling someone a predator is one of the most damaging accusations you can lob in Hollywood, then using that word as a weapon without truth behind it isn't just reckless, it's malicious. And if the jury agrees, Reynolds isn't just facing PR fallout. He's facing real damages. But here's where the scandal morphs from ugly to jaw-dropping: the media. Baldoni's team has argued that the New York Times didn't just report the story, they helped write it. Emails, metadata, and pre-release drafts allegedly show coordination between journalists and Lively's camp before her complaint was even filed. That's not journalism. That's PR warfare masquerading as reporting. Normally, outlets shield themselves under fair reporting privilege, the legal safety net that says, we're just covering what's filed. But if they were in the kitchen helping cook the narrative before the ingredients even arrived, that shield collapses. And suddenly the Times isn't a reporter. They're a co-conspirator. For once, one of the most powerful media outlets in the world might have to answer for building the wrecking ball instead of just describing its swing. Add to that the betrayal of Stephanie Jones, a PR mogul who built her brand on fear. Her firm, Jones Works, was supposed to protect clients like Baldoni's company. Instead, according to lawsuits, she staged a corporate-style raid of her own employees' phone before they left the firm, extracting confidential messages and handing them off to Reynolds and Lively's side. And those very messages, curiously altered, showed up in court filings and media leaks. That's not PR, that's sabotage. And it might be the final nail in Jones's career. Clients are fleeing her. Hollywood, once terrified of her shadow, now sees her as radioactive. The woman you hire to clean up a crisis has become the crisis. So what do we have now? A collapsing power network. Reynolds' mask slipping in real time. Lively exposed for twisting a victim-centered law into her personal shield. Arie dethroned. Jones abandoned. The New York Times accused of co-writing accusations instead of reporting them. The machine they built to crush one man's reputation is rusting before our eyes. And through it all, Reynolds keeps smirking for the cameras, firing off jokes on social media, playing Deadpool like nothing's changed. But the truth is catching up. Deadpool was fiction. This is real life. And the people he hurt don't get to respawn for a sequel. There's nothing funny about forcing children into sexualized dialogue, altering evidence, weaponizing loyalty, or calling rivals predators to executives just because you can. That's not charm. That's cruelty with a laugh track. And for the first time, the public sees it. Fans who once defended Reynolds' every wisecrack are questioning his motives. Reporters who once gave Lively the benefit of the doubt are noticing the inconsistencies. Lawyers who once saw Ari as untouchable are dissecting his recorded words as potential liabilities. Hollywood's high school is finally being graded by the adults in the room. And Reynolds, Lively, and their collapsing entourage are failing the test. Because here's the ultimate twist. No meme, no PR stunt, no courtroom quip can hide the fact that this was never about justice. It was about power, friendships, grudges, image, the tools of a Hollywood elite who thought their control was infinite. But power isn't permanent. Empires fall. Titans stumble. And sometimes the very arrogance that built your fortress is the hammer that smashes it. Ryan Reynolds didn't just play Deadpool. He became him, sarcastic, brutal, unforgiving. But there's no director here to yell cut. No clever edit to spin malice into comedy. No sequel to rewrite the past. The mask is slipping, the machine is breaking, and for the first time in a long time, Hollywood may not get to script its ending. And that's just the beginning.